join the Scottish Football Zone with all the build-up and reactions.
And hello, very warm welcome to a Monday special of the Scottish Football Zone. We are joined by the top team as always, and we are joined by Robbie and Ethan, and Reagan will be coming on soon in a few minutes' time. How's it going, guys?
Aye, no bad. Still trying to get the disappointment that Saturday, but no, it's a good weekend of Scottish football. To be fair, we obviously had a lot of cup games. We've had the cup draw. We know who everybody's going to be playing, all the Premiership teams. So it was a good weekend of football.
Yeah, it certainly was very entertaining, and some shocks in the Scottish Cup certainly. My local side, Dumbarton, getting thrashed off Auchinleck Talbot at home, and obviously Talbot rewarded with Celtic coming to town, which should be a great windfall for them, and some really interesting draws across the board. Obviously, Hearts and Rangers dropping points, Celtic somehow getting away from Easter Road with 3 points despite not playing their best again. So yeah, lots to talk about, as well as St Mirren and Kilmarnock as the obvious strugglers in the league at the moment.
Yep, and also we've got an interview coming up for us to get the lowdown on Wilfrick Nonsi. I've been practicing that. I've been practicing his name for the past 2 minutes, so there you go, as well. So yeah, I mean, let's start with Celtic then, Ethan, because obviously you would say that the second half, Celtic basically were lucky to get all 3 points yesterday.
Yeah, they certainly were. In the second half, you talk about it, they had 2 shots, none on target. They were both 2 kind of speculative efforts as well. They pretty much, within the space of, I think it was just over a minute, they said, they capitalised on 2 Hibs errors, you would have to say. The first one, obviously, Salinger puts, I can't remember who it was it Chaiwa, I think it was, he passed the ball to, and Real Hattati was right on him, and Celtic executed it well. Hattati slid it across to Maeda, and then right off a kick-offs, Celtic won it back from a really great move up from Kasper Schmeichel, and Sarachi, and Yang puts in a nice ball, takes a deflection. Engels makes a really good run. Poor defending from Hibs, so that they would have looked to do better and not allow Engels pretty much a free header in the box, although he does get a kick in the face for his troubles. But yeah, at that point, you felt Celtic were in a lot of control, and it would take a lot for Hibs to get back in the game. They just didn't create enough, Hibs probably, to get 2 goals, but neither did Celtic really. They just took their 2 chances when they came in the first half, and I suppose that's maybe what good teams do, and it makes the difference when the teams around you, Hearts and Rangers obviously especially, is the main title threats to Celtic at the minute, also drop points, and Celtic are in a really good position. And then obviously they've got, after they play Dundee on Wednesday, which we thought was going to be Wilfried Nonsi's first game, it's now going to be postponed to that massive game against Hearts on Sunday, which will be really interesting, as we spoke about, I think, on one of the shows previously, as to how quickly he'll implement his style, especially when you're going to be playing at the time the league leaders, you'd imagine.
Reagan joined us. We had Reagan's kind of joined us because I was talking about Celtic. He always seems to pop out when we're talking about Celtic. I don't know why. Reagan, what's your take on the Kevin Bridges ticket secret? No, what's your take on yesterday's game at Easter Road?
I'm just going to say, Michael, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it, but I think in terms of Celtic, Michael, I thought that the Highbury probably should have won the game. You look at the first half and the second half, to be honest with you, I think the Celtic goals, they probably come against the run of play. I don't know if Ethan agrees, but I sort of thought that Celtic got very unlucky. And I think it just shows you that the standard of the player this season, I don't think it's very great for Celtic, to be honest with you guys. I thought Yang had a pretty decent game yesterday again, actually, because he's been pretty actually okay for the last 2 or 3 matches. But I felt for me, I don't know if Robbie and Ethan agree, but I felt the best player on the pitch from a Celtic point of view was Arna Engels.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think what you said as well about the goals coming against the run of play, I think Hibs started the better of the two. I think Chris Sutton said it on commentary that Celtic started in quite a sluggish manner. I also just remembered that the tackle Kobe Donovan made at the right hand side that I think a few people wanted a red card for. I think a yellow was probably the right decision.
Yeah, that was a bad one.
It was a bad tackle, but I think it was probably a yellow. Celtic wanted, I think a few Celtic fans wanted a penalty for a sort of, it was two players going for the ball, and I think it was Yang who maybe got there first and Bashiri got there just after with a head sort of collision, which I don't think there was much in. I thought the penalty against Liam Scales was quite harsh, but I understand why they gave it. His arm is slightly outstretched and it's caught in a sort of unnatural position. Martin Boyle obviously does well with the penalty. Kasper Schmeichel's terrible, probably saving record for penalties at Celtic continues. I think he thought Boyle was going to go down the middle because he often does with his penalties, smashes them down the middle, but he obviously passed into the corner this occasion, and when Hibs got that goal, you thought there'd be a real chance for them to come back in the game, but Kasper Schmeichel made a few good saves, and I don't think they really created enough to get that second goal, but as Regan said, I maybe wouldn't go as far as saying Hibs deserve to win the match, but they definitely will feel they deserve to take something, at least a point, because Celtic weren't great on the day, and with that, just over a minute, they scored those two goals. They didn't really threaten Raphael Salinger's goal, so yeah, Hibs and David Gray will see it as points dropped and a disappointing week after the Motherwell result. Celtic and Martin O'Neill will see it as another 3 points on the board, and they've obviously won every domestic game, and then off the back of the Feyenoord win the other night as well, it's been really successful for Martin O'Neill, and you want to finish that in front of a Celtic Park crowd against Dundee on Wednesday night, and it'll be a really successful spell for him, and I think his legacy and the Celtic fan eyes will only be improved. I know it's been a short stint, but he's came in at a time of need and ultimately provided what Celtic have needed.
Yeah, I mean, Robbie, compared to a few weeks ago, the tables have turned a wee bit because obviously the fans won the ball back. Don't get me wrong, they were scoring the balls back yesterday because I think they had a red card get displayed before the game. You saw Schmeichel kicking it off the park in the second half as well. But like on the park, Martin O'Neill has turned it round.
He's done very, very well, and he's done. I think we spoke about it on the show last week. I think what he's done well is he's just letting the players play their way. You know, he's asking the players like Yang. It's no surprise that Yang's been really good creatively the last couple of games because he's been asked to go and show what he can do. Probably why you're seeing the best out of the midfield players as well. Regan, I know you mentioned Engels. I thought he had a really good game as well, and it's no surprise that he has done Celtic's fortune around. I think you're right. I think the squad isn't as good as it has been in previous years for Celtic, but what O'Neill's done is he's allowing these players to go and show the best. Like Luke McEwen has got some potential. I think he really could be a good player, but he has just been asked to go out and try his best. And he's trusting in players as well. Guys like Kobe Donovan. He's entrusting him to go and play in a massive, massive game. So I think for O'Neill, he did just want to go out and see these players get their own. I think you could say over the belt at his tenure they have done.
I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. Reagan, it was a very, very simple game, and Martin O'Neill's just come in and just kind of like tweak one or two things, and it's back to business as usual for Celtic.
Yeah, I think Celtic are a better team to watch, to be honest, because they move the ball forward quicker. It's not this shoehorn or horseshoe, but they say. I've heard people saying about Brendan Rodgers' football over the past 2 or 3 seasons, but I'm looking forward to seeing Nancy because I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of football he plays, because I'm actually interested to figure out is it actually going to work in Scottish football, because I hear a lot of people speaking about Nancy, but I think one of the things that really worries me, I don't know if you guys have heard, But I've heard that Nancy, he's not a guy that really focuses on set plays or set pieces. That's sort of worrying to me because if he's playing in Scottish football, that's a big focus.
Aye, it will need to, it'll probably need to sharpen that up quite a bit if he's coming into Celtic. And look, I can imagine with the type of bodies that Nancy's going to get in the door and his coaching team, the way he'll set up, I'd imagine he's going to have bodies in there in the coaching team that know Scottish football. I don't imagine he's going to fling a whole coaching team together for the outside, because I think you always need a couple of guys at least that know what they're doing. So whether he keeps on Sean Maloney or whether he brings in something else, I reckon he will.
You should bring in Michael, Rob. You should bring in Michael. Michael knows what he's doing, eh, Michael? You got to be better Celtic coaching, son.
Kind of, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I know my name and all that, so that's the basics, you know.
But no, I do reckon Nancy will probably shut him up his set piece, because he will find out very quickly teams will try to utilise that against Celtic, and it is something that teams can find success with. So he'll need to be sharp with it.
I was just going to ask, in terms of you guys, do any of you guys know when Jota's back? Because I tell you what, I forgot about Jota until yesterday. It just kind of sprung on me, and I went, "Oh, I mean, Jota's to come back as well."
Yeah, I think it's probably January or February, I'm going to guess, that he's back in, which will obviously be good to have back, as Celtic wingers have probably been a position that's maybe been one of the weakest recently. Obviously, Yang's played some of his best stuff in the last two games. I thought he was one of Celtic standouts again on Sunday, and I think he could have got man of the match, same as Engels probably, and Maeda as well. I thought were the standout players. But yeah, I think it will be interesting to see when Jota is back, because Celtic have obviously got a lot of injury problems long term as well. Alistair Johnston and Cameron Carter-Vickers.
Sorry, on you go, Robbie.
No, I was just going to ask you guys a question quickly about Hibs. At what point do we start to question the mentality of David Gray? I mean, it's another big match against Celtic. He's lost. He went away to Motherwell, a good chance to climb up the table. Lost 2-0 red card. He played Rangers at home under Danny Rose. Was it first game in charge? First couple. Lost 1-0. I know he lost to Edinburgh Derby 1-0 to Hearts. I know he drew 0-0 at Celtic Park, but then a couple of weeks before that, I get beaten in the Cup to Rangers. It's all well and good. I think Hibs picking up wins against the team sort of quote unquote lower down, if you will. But at what point do we question the mentality of these players when it comes to the big matches? Because Hibs if Hibs realistically, and a lot of Hibs fans, they see themselves as a top four club. That's just the way they see themselves. Whether it's true or not, it's opinionated. But at what point do they need to start turning the fortunes around against the clubs sort of above them? Because they play Rangers in a few weeks, and I'll tell you now, I think they play Falkirk next Saturday. If they lose that and then lose to Rangers, David Gray's under some amount of pressure again.
Yeah, I mean, you better be singing that David Gray song, "Sail Away with Me," because he'll be sailing away in the sunset if he doesn't get a few wins. But I think in general, Robbie, you're spot on, because you look at that match yesterday, and you look at the match especially when they played Rangers, when Russell Martin was under so much pressure. The Rangers go on and win that game pretty easily. And you think to yourself, right, if you look at the fixtures over the next few weeks, they play Ibrox in a few weeks, they play the Edinburgh Derby, so there's a lot of big matches in there that they need to try and win.
Aye. And Hibs notoriously don't win these matches either, that's the problem.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say to you, from a Hibs point of view, Robbie, as well, you're right. I mean, I thought Hibs played better in the second half, but I put that down to let's get into the non-penalty incident, because I feel though that penalty incident kind of put Celtic off a wee bit in the slide in the second half. I don't know if you agree, guys, as well. First of all, on the penalty, I mean, Scales, he didn't know anything about it at all, and maybe that's why a lot of people doesn't like VAR now, because it's kind of like spoiling the game, and I'm just waiting for what they call him to phone up Martin O'Neill and say sorry, it wasn't a penalty. My personal opinion on that is Willie. I think I'm going to call Willie him. It's not Willie Corn, it's Willie Sorry Corn, because every time he comes out, it's always, oh, sorry, that wasn't a penalty, that wasn't a free kick. Ethan, where do you stand on the debate yesterday?
Yeah, I think it's one that you hate to see given as a penalty, and I think it's one that shouldn't really be a penalty. But with how the rules have been and how they've been officiating stuff across the board, I think it is just one that they give as a penalty now. His arm's out, it's near the goal, and it hits his arm. And as you said, he doesn't know much about it. The thing that I found maybe a bit strange is I don't know because I haven't seen it so many times, but I thought Liam Scales headed it first before it hit his hand, which would usually mean that if it hits another body part, and obviously I don't know the ins and outs of the rules because I'm not a referee, but that's one that maybe Willie Collum will explain.
Shocking, even you should know every rule. That's why we pay you to come on the show. You should know this stuff. You should know what's happening.
Well, I think that's the rule. I think that's the rule anyway, that if it hits another body part before your arm, then I don't think it's black and white, mind you. So I think sometimes that can happen and it can still be given, but I think usually it's an indicator. But fortunately, I mean, it didn't have too much of a bearing in the match. Hibs still couldn't get into it. But yeah, it's a really interesting point just to go back on Hibs that Robbie made about them against other teams in the top six. They played the other 5 teams in the top 6 7 times this season in all competitions and not won any of the games. So it's something they've been struggling with. And if they want to really cement themselves in those upper European places, then they need to start doing that, because if they're losing and dropping points in those games, then they've not really got a chance. They've got 4 in a row. They've obviously lost 2 in a row against teams in the top 6. Then they've got 2 more games against teams in the top 6. They also had a run earlier with 4 games consecutively against teams in the top 6 and didn't win any of them. So it is a worrying point, I imagine, for the Hibs fans, although they are still in a good position. But they're the only team in the league to have played 15 games. So Falkirk have got a game in hand to overtake them. Obviously, they play them next. Aberdeen have got 2 games in hand and are 4 points behind them with Aberdeen's current form, and you never know. So, yeah, they need to start beating the teams around them if they want to really cement themselves as a top 6 team at the very least.
So that is the game yesterday, and rumours has it that Nancy is coming in for the game on Sunday. But I wanted to find out more about this Wilfred Nancy. So yesterday I sat down with a journalist all the way from the USFA to find out about the man himself coming to Celtic. So here's my chat with Gabe from the 4 Pro Columbus podcast. Thanks for joining us on the Scottish Football Zone. Obviously, you're from the 4 Cross podcast. And we're talking about Wilfred Nancy being announced as the Celtic manager this week. First up, I would like to ask, what can the Celtic fans look forward to under Nancy?
With Nancy, I think you guys will find that you will find very quick success under him. Nancy is a coach that will come in and immediately make his changes that he wants to see in a club. And it might take a few games, but after that, he will show very quickly how he will fit in with the Scottish Premier League.
So what's the kind of like style do they play? Obviously, different managers has got different styles. So what's the style under Nancy?
So we play a 3-4-3 usually here, with 3 center backs that we usually kind of play a very attacking style football, with a lot of possession on our side as well. So we play a lot out of the back, usually through our keeper or one main center back, who are kind of the pivot points in the field. And then we will go wide using either our 2 wing backs that we play in the midfield, or with our two center backs on the wings, they will push higher up than most other teams would be willing to. So I would say expect a lot of attacking under Nancy. He loves to push for a lot of goals, and while also dominating possession as well. You will probably see close to 60 to 70% possession under him.
Obviously, we did know a lot about Nancy when it was announced as the favourite for the job, and obviously because you're kind of journalist and in Scotland, we were kind of like searching online, as it were, to find information about him, and he comes across a very passionate guy.
Yes. He is, very passionate for the game. He takes it very seriously when he is on the field. And he expects only the best from his players. But at the same time, he knows when to kind of put aside the game and celebrate as well. He loves to be a part of the community, and a part of the fans as well. But his passion for the game is what makes him such a good coach, because he is more focused on showing what he can do with the team, even teams that are usually not as good, such as Columbus. When we first came to us, we were in the middle of a transition period, weren't looking too good, and he was able to turn a team around, grabbing young players and non-starters and turn them into beasts on the field and get them transfers outward, and even made us a successful team in recent years. So his passion is definitely there. One of the big quotes that he used when he was here, when he first came and was winning game after game, was he told us fans that impossible is an opinion. And that is his main philosophy with this team, was to bring them to success, never going into a game as an underdog, and showing what we are capable of as crew when he was with us.
Now, obviously, Nancy won the MLS Coach of the Year in 2024, and obviously he won the MLS Cup as well. Just tell us about the fans. Are they kind of like a bit disappointed that he's leaving?
I think there's definitely a lot of disappointment about him leaving. Under Nancy, we've probably seen the most success this club has ever seen. We've had trophies in the past, but not this level of consistency, reaching finals. So we're definitely disappointed, but as a league such as MLS, we're not too incredibly disappointed. We're pretty used to players going outward, especially in the direction of Europe. So I think a lot of us fans are sad that he's leaving, but also excited to see what he will become at Celtic and see what success he can reach there.
I was just asking you off air before we started recording about his coaching staff. Maybe this is something completely different to Postecoglou when he came to Celtic, when Postecoglou came on his own. And obviously, John Kennedy was the Celtic coach for many years. He was Angie's number two, and kind of like Gavin Strachan, but this time it's a wee bit different because Nancy is bringing his own coaching staff. Can you just give us a wee insight into his background team?
Yeah, I'm interested to see what he will do with the coaching staff, especially with the chances that he does leave Columbus. We're going to need a replacement coach. And there's a high possibility that we'll reach out for his second-hand man, Ampadu, who he's been with the club for a while. But I'm sure he'd want to follow Nancy, but if he's offered the position of the main coaching spot at Columbus, I feel like he might stay. On terms of the rest of the guys, with his coaching staff, what can I say for this? Most of them will probably just adapt to what Nancy wants to play. One thing that you won't see from our coaching staff is a set piece specialist or set piece coach. We don't really have that at Columbus, and it's not too common to have one in MLS either, but that's probably something that is one of Nancy's weak points. So I can see him either picking up one of the guys already at Celtic. Do you guys have a set piece coach already? That'd be a good question.
Yeah, no, we don't have kind of like anything like that, but obviously, like football down in England and maybe like go over and like the US of A has different coaches for different positions, but we don't have that in Scotland.
Yep. I think then he will probably try and pick up some other guys as well to probably help with the different styles there then. Because in MLS, it's kind of heavily dominated by one coach. You don't really see a lot kind of going on with the assistant staffs, other than, of course, you have the goalkeeping coaches as well. But I'd be interested to see what I'd kind of just as clueless as you are with the rest of the staff, seeing which ones will follow him, which ones will choose to stay, because that is a huge move across for them to even just be assistant coaches. But I can say that they will follow his philosophy to the end, at least.
Finally, I would just like to ask you as well, what is the Golak was Gabe from the 4 o'clock Columbus podcast, got a wee insight into what we are going to expect from Wilfried Nancy when he's appearing in Scotland. Hopefully, rather soon than later. I think the rumours are he'll take charge of the game on Sunday against Hearts, and a baptism of fire, even because he's got that game, the European game, and the game against Robbie's St Mirren next Sunday in the Cup. So a bit of a quiet start to his life in Glasgow.
Yeah, exactly that. And maybe it's I don't know really much behind the decision as to why he's not in for the Dundee game on Wednesday night, and why it's now going to be the Hearts game on Sunday. I don't know if maybe it's because he wants maybe more training sessions in between. Obviously, if you're playing Sunday to Wednesday, that's less days than in between Wednesday and Sunday by one day. So maybe he gets more training sessions in and gets to see the players in action and training more than he would starting on for the game on Wednesday. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much he can implement his style in that. I think I've sounded like a broken record with this, but it would always be easier to implement your style in less meaningless games, or not less meaningless games, but games against teams towards the bottom end of the Scottish Premiership that on paper aren't going to cause as much of a threat. But now you've got games against Hearts, who, although they've been struggling recently, I still think they've got a really good squad to go again, and they always cause problems for Celtic, usually when they play against them. Roma are a top team in the Europa League, and they're doing very well in Serie A. And then St Mirren, although they've obviously been struggling in the league, which I'm sure we'll get on to, they all, as we've seen in the last 3 games against Celtic, they always make it difficult for them, and it's a one-off game at the National Stadium. So, yeah, 3 massive games that he needs to win, probably at least 2 of them. I'm thinking of the Hearts and St Mirren game, and then a draw would be a positive result against Roma, with Celtic needing 3 points from the last 3, you'd imagine, to get into the knockout rounds of the Europa League.
I'm not looking to put a dagger to the heart of Celtic board again. I just think it's shambolic that this manager's coming in against top of the table club Hearts. I just think that surely this should be mapped out and go, right, we'll put the guy in front for a match where there's sort of less pressure on it, because see, at the end of the day, Celtic could lose that game on Sunday, and that's not going to put the new manager that's going to put the manager under so much pressure straight away.
Regan, play devil's advocate though. What if Nancy comes in and beats Hart next week? Then he's instantly, he's instantly on the fan side. So, I don't think personally there's no best time to bring Nancy in. You've just, with the run of games, you've just got to put him into this situation. Clearly, he backs himself as a good manager. Listening to Gabe there, I thought was a very good interview, by the way, Michael. This guy clearly backs himself as a good coach. He's got a really good philosophy. He's a good manager. He wants to get along with the fans. This guy clearly backs himself to be a good manager. He's got the success. He's won the MLS Manager of the Year. So there's not really any right time to bring this guy in. You know, just bring him in and see what happens.
Robbie, but I'm telling you that I just hope he doesn't get booed. That if, say, I'm just saying, for instance, that if Celtic go out and they get beat 3-0 by Hearts at Celtic Park, he's not going to get a rousing reception.
Yeah, he isn't, but you could also make the point that this is not the same Hearts team that Celtic even played in the last game at Tynecastle. Since they've played Celtic, they've only won one. They've been struggling, dropping points in almost every match. And it's at Celtic Park as well, and Celtic have, although the last two performances in the league against Hibs and St Mirren have been pretty under par, they've still got the results, and they'll still probably be massive favourites, even though it is not his first game. But as Robbie said, you can look at it on the other perspective. He comes in his 3 massive games. He has the opportunity to get the players lifted and win and get the fans on side right away. And I think if he struggles in them and doesn't do as well, then I don't think there'll be a rush to put him under pressure. They'll obviously the fans will realise that he's never. This is a guy who has never managed in European football before, so it's going to be a new experience for him, much more new experience for him than it is for any of the fans. So yeah, but as we know in this country, you don't get a lot of time.
I just wanted to finally ask you guys. I've seen a lot of things today, yesterday, Friday, people saying that Martin O'Neill should have been treated with more respect. Do you guys agree with that? Because I personally don't. I think Martin O'Neill's come in, he's done a good job. I don't think he should be treated with more respect. I think he knows the situation he's going to be in. But I hear people like Peter Grant, Mark Guidi, who say that he should be the manager that goes into the house game, that goes into the final against the Mirren.
I'm not sure about that. I think Martin O'Neill, he's came in to do a job for his old team. They obviously was very successful being a permanent manager around 20 years ago now, of course. And he's came in and he's steadied the ship and he's done the job that was asked of him. And I think the Celtic board, the Celtic players, the Celtic fans will have a lot of admiration for that. But at the end of the day, they need to get a new manager, and Martin O'Neill is not somebody that you can expect to come in and be your new manager on a permanent basis or whatever. And I'm not saying that's what the people you mentioned were saying, but when the opportunity comes to get who's spoke of certainly across the world as a very talented coach who is well on his way to making the jump across to European football, then when the opportunity comes around, then you've got to take that and bring him in, because he's ultimately the manager who's going to take the club forward. Not someone, I wouldn't say like Martin O'Neill. I don't think that's really the right decision, because I think Martin O'Neill, he's a great, in this probably day and age, he's a great man manager. But I think if you're looking at that coaching staff, I'd imagine Sean Maloney's probably behind most of the tactical stuff that we're seeing from Celtic currently, because as we know, Martin O'Neill's been at management for a long time, and tactics have obviously moved on since back in the days when he played and obviously went on to manage.
Okay, let's move on to Celtic's next opponents. Then they get a crucial point at Ibrox yesterday. Rangers 0, Falkirk 0, Robbie, and Falkirk had a chance right on full time to take all 3 points, but another disappointing performance from Rangers, especially at home.
A very, very disappointing performance under Danny Rowe. I mean, watching the highlights, Michael, it's very easy to see how poor Rangers actually were. Both Falkirk, I mean, like, you've got to give John McLean a lot of credit in that situation. They went to Ibrox, they didn't show any fear, they pressed high, they forced Rangers into mistakes. I mean, that one with Jack Butland, I think it was Jigger that passed it back to him. The Falkirk player slips in, wins the ball, unfortunate, not a probably score, to be honest with you. I think that game probably summed up the problems at Rangers. They're defensively really, really poor right now. Going forward, I thought that's about as bad as you're going to see Asgard, to be honest. He had so much time on the ball, he got so many opportunities, just so wasteful with it. I thought Connor Barron, by the way, I thought he was probably Rangers' best player on the day. I thought he was a very, very tidy midfielder before he got took off. So there's a lot of problems at Rangers right now. I think that's clear to see. And look, you've got to give respect to Danny Rowe because he's some, I think if that game personally is under Russell Martin, Rangers don't walk away with even a point in that game. So I think you've got to give Rowe credit that he's actually managing to somehow string something out of these players. And
Robbie,
I think,
I'm just going to say, Robbie, how damning is it that people like Bajrami and even Fernandez, players that shouldn't even be at the club, are standout players? I mean, Bajrami probably has the best chance for Rangers right on the 45 minutes. I watched the match live yesterday, and I felt that was probably the best chance of the entire match for Rangers. But I think Bajrami, I think he's been lucky to be in squads over the past few months and years for Rangers, and maybe he put in a very good showing yesterday, I thought.
I thought Bajrami looked alright. I mean, look, Fernandez is one that's interesting. I actually think he has got some decent potential in a Rangers side. I know you said there, why are players that maybe shouldn't be at Rangers still it, but I think Emmanuel Fernandez is actually a decent centre half. I don't know if he's quite up to Rangers standard, but compared to the rest of the centre backs that they currently have available, like Giga, I mean, he has a step above them. Giga is a really, really poor defender in that Rangers team. Again, they don't really have another option. I feel kind of bad for him because he has been put out into the firing line every week. And the mistakes that he's making in games obviously isn't helping him. So I'd agree. I think Bajrami was another standout player, but Connor Barron for me, I mean, that's a guy Rangers fans have criticised heavily in the past already. But I think guys like him are a pretty big standout player for Rangers. I think he will be into the future as well. So
Yeah, and I think the problems looking at the starting 11 from the other night when Rangers played Braga, and probably I think Rangers will feel they should have won that match. They didn't change for the weekend. Didn't change any of the back four, the midfield sitting two of the goalkeeper, but changed the whole front attacking four. And that's been the problem with Rangers. They're not scoring enough goals to win matches, and they probably created enough chances. Looking at his son, Falkmob, Scott Bain goes down as man of the match, which tells the story. Falkirk have went to Ibrox and they've had to dig in. Obviously, they're not going to have it all their own way, despite how well Falkirk have been playing recently under John McGlynn. But they get a massive point and keep their run going. The excellent run they've been on, going back all the way to probably the last time they drew with Rangers in the reverse fixture that obviously got Russell Martin sacked. Since that game, they went away to Far Park and won. They beat Dundee at home. Okay, they got lost to Celtic quite heavily at Celtic Park in Martin O'Neill's first game, but they beat Kilmarnock. They drew with Livingston, who David Martindale's been a bit of a banana skin for John McGlynn, and not just this season, but across his career. Then they go to Tannadice and win 3-0. Then they go to Ibrox and get another point against Rangers. So Falkirk are one of the most on-form teams probably in the league at the minute, and there's no surprise that they're in that top six. Obviously, Aberdeen are building up steam behind them. They've got a game in hand to go level in points. But as we were speaking about, Falkirk are playing tomorrow night at home to Motherwell, which will be a real crunch match. Falkirk can overtake Motherwell, actually, if they win that. But obviously, Motherwell have been on pretty decent form themselves. So, yeah, for Rangers, I think it probably was coming with the performances in the recent games. Danny Rowe was getting through it and getting them wins in the league, which is what they needed. And obviously the different factor from when Russell Martin was in charge, they built up momentum to catch up to obviously Hearts, who are the league leaders, and kept within touching distance of Celtic. But I think this result was probably coming at a drop point somewhere along the road, and it's never going to be perfect for Danny Rowe. It's not his side. I know we keep saying it, but you can see when he's changed the front four players that he's not happy with his attacking options and certainly striker options, especially when they're struggling to score goals consistently.
Robbie, I'm going to ask you about as a if the same situation was happening at St Mirren, but I mean, I would be interested to hear Ethan and Reagan's take on this, and everybody's comment on this as well, right? But they said that when Danny Rose came in, like he's won probably 3 or 4 games back to back. Aye, okay. But there's a difference in winning games and performing in games now. A lot of fans can forgive the performances and not, and sorry, a lot of fans can forgive the performances, but getting wins is the most important thing. But like, if you look at it like that, if you turn the tables opposite way, like Rangers have not been performing under any manager for years, and that's been a concerning thing.
Yeah, and look, I mean, look, Roll can't take any blame for what at Rangers. They can. I'd actually give Roll more praise, Michael, to be honest, for coming in and actually turning the form around. I mean, I know you said they're not exactly playing brilliant and they haven't been for a number of years, but compared to Russell Martin, he's actually going out and getting results in games, which is something Martin couldn't do. So, I'd give Roll more probably praise than I would criticism. Albeit he's got a lot of work to do, and January is going to be such a big window for Rangers for outcomings and incomings. And the
Robbie,
club that are going into a year ago.
I'm interested to get your thoughts because I'm a big fan of Miovski. But what's happened to that guy? And I've seen a Daily Record podcast yesterday saying he must have been doing a flag run at Spain last year. Because I'm just really interested to know, like, what that player's actually been doing. Because it looked yesterday as if he couldn't score. It looked as if he couldn't tie you and then score a goal.
Aye, I mean, I'm not too sure what happened. I know he hit 27, no, not 27 shots. I think he had 27 touches of the ball yesterday. But I don't think what will be helping him is guys behind him. Michael, I'm very good. I think one of you two said it there. He changed his whole attack in front 4. I mean, that is just no building a good team. That getting changed all the time is not going to be helping any of the players in that forward line. None of this, let's be honest, none of the strikers are cutting it. Danilo, Chummy, or Miovski, they're all having poor seasons. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys watched Bolton before the cup draw, but they put up a really interesting stat. It was like last season's Rangers scorers, like the front 3 compared to this season's, and it's night and day. I think this season's only have about 3 goals between the 3 of them. Last season, I think they had well over 45, so it really does show you the difference. And I think Rangers, and it get criticised on this show, I remember, and criticised by the general Rangers fans. I think they'll be missing a player like Dessers right now.
Yeah, definitely will be missing Cyril Dessers with the lack of
Sorry,
scoring.
I'm just going to say to you as well there. You look at the 3 players that Rangers have let go over the past few months. You look at Cherny, who they could have bought. You look at Dessers, and even look at somebody like Gamani. I mean, these are 3 players that if Rangers wanted to keep, they could have easily kept. I mean, I think Cherny was going to be, I think it was £6 million. I think you'd rather pay £6 million for Cherny than £8 million for Chimity.
Yeah, definitely, and that's that. And Rangers recruitment has just been terrible from the start of the window to the end of it, pretty much. And you guys spoke about Emmanuel Fernandez earlier, and despite him maybe looking a bit better when he's had to play, I don't think he was worth £3 million. And I think that's what the Peterborough fans were even saying. They were almost celebrating the sale because of how much money they actually got for him. And that's just, it makes Rangers become a laughing stock in that sense. And that's why I put little to no criticism on Danny Rowe, because it's not his players. He's came in over the last 5 games in the Scottish Premiership. Rangers have got the best form of any team, 4 wins and then the draw. So, yeah, I think he's doing what he can, and he needs to get the players going again and get wins, because I think they've got 2 away games next against Dundee United and Kilmarnock, which are 2 of the teams maybe you want to play at the minute, but they need to go and score the goals, because even that they're finding difficult at the moment.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but I did find it interesting that Parag Maraf and Andrew Kavanagh still said that Farewell Jr. still going to be at the club. I found that interesting.
I thought he got released. I didn't think
No, it was just Farewell, Kevin Farewell. I don't think it was his son.
Just on Nathan's point about that is a bit I thought he get released as well, but just on Nathan's point there about Emmanuel
no.
Fernandez, can you just believe that Wolves paid £10 million for Nasser Jiga? That's how much they valued him at. I mean, wow.
Oh.
Rangers are lucky they didn't actually buy him and have only got him on loan.
Yeah, I know from Red Star Belgrade, I think I said the other night, actually, it was Partizan, mistakenly, which hopefully no Serbians are watching, because that's not one you want to get mixed up. But yeah, but no, yeah, that's it. Like, and that's probably just how stupid the English Premier League money is, that they're willing to spend 10 million on a player like that. But you look closer to home, Rangers spending 8 stretching out with add-ons to whatever on Chermiti, then I don't know. They've just missed the mark on almost every signing, and it's been a disaster. I mean, they're lucky that they're still kind of within touching distance of even being in contention for a league title, because they're 9 points behind Hearts with a game in hand, and they're 7 points behind Celtic, which at this stage in the season isn't very much. As we've seen, we thought Hearts were running away with it after they beat Celtic, and since then it's obviously Celtic have now probably got the advantage, you would say, with being 2 points behind with that game in hand, and then obviously Hearts having to come to Celtic Park at the weekend.
But I mean, you look at Rangers fixtures over the next few weeks. They play Dundee United, and then they play away at Rugby Park. Then they're playing against Aberdeen at home. They play the Highways at home.
No, Aberdeen's been rescheduled. I don't think they play that until later in the season. Though.
Yeah, they play Aberdeen back to. Yeah, Robbie's right. They play Aberdeen back-to-back games now on the 6th and 11th of January. 6th and 11th of January. Sorry, one at home and then one away.
I mean, are they not due to go to time capsule as well?
Yeah, after Hibs.
Yes, Hibs and then Hearts. So
because that could be interesting, because if Hearts win that game, then you've got to say it's truly to the title for me, because, and I think if Hearts then go 9 points clear of Rangers, then you've got to say that Rangers season's in tatters.
Aye, that's a really weird kickoff time, 1:30 on a Sunday. I mean, that is a bit of a kickoff time, but aye, you're right. I mean, there's so many big important weeks. I've got 3 away games in a row, and you know, I should say, by the way, in the league, 2 away games against teams that aren't exactly playing great themselves. So, you know, if you're wanting Roll to try and catch up to Celtic and Hearts at a time where Celtic and Hearts have some really big games against some really tough teams, you're going to say that's going to be the sort of fixture when you're wanting. You're going to want to be going to Dundee United and Kilmarnock, because they're not playing great right now. So it's a good chance for Rangers to try and at least try and catch up.
And I think as well, I don't think there's any room for error for Donegal either, because even if he loses a game, I mean, Celtic have played a lot of big matches over the last few weeks. Celtic been away to St Mirren, away to the Highways as well. So Celtic have been away there and they've won. The other thing, Celtic are playing at home to Aberdeen, I think it is. In a few weeks, they're playing obviously against Dundee and against Hearts. But I think that as much as Robbie's right and Rangers are right back into it, if Celtic go on a little one and run and sit in the same with Hearts, the Rangers could be a big bit of trouble.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think at the same time, I don't think you can put any blame on Roll if it does go wrong. You know, I don't think. But I think personally, you can't, you know, you can't start Roll at all by any means. I don't.
No.
Unless it go as bad as Russell Martin was getting, then I think you would probably need it at some point. But I don't see that being the case with Danny. I think he's a different manager. I think he's already proven that he can get wins in this league, with a team that, let's be honest, isn't good enough to be competing at the top. So I think the future, I think it's bright in some aspect, especially with Daniel, but I think the players do need to move on a lot.
Let's speak about Falkirk now before we move on. Regan, I've been very impressed with. Yep. So obviously, you can post a question in the chat if you want. Keep it clean. It's a family show and all that. Reagan, yeah, I've not saw folk live this season. I'll see them on Wednesday night for the first time, but by all accounts, they're doing well, and also pick up a decent point on Sunday against Rangers.
Yeah, I think there was a few times yesterday where Falkirk fans would have had the hands in their mouth because they play some lovely football, but they don't have to take some risks as well. But I think Falkirk will be pretty happy because if you say to a Falkirk fan, you take 2 points off Rangers, you beat Dundee United 3-0, that you would do very well against all of the clubs so far, apart from going to Tynecastle and getting beat 4-0, I think it was. So I think the big thing for Falkirk fans is they're being very competitive in every single match.
Yeah, no, exactly. Ethan, you'll see them up close on Wednesday night. What are you looking forward to? Do you think Falkirk will come and have a go at Celtic Park?
Oh, Falkirk don't
No,
play
it's
Celtic.
Dundee. It's Dundee at Celtic Park on Wednesday night.
Dundee, yeah. Sorry, I'm getting nervous now
I
because
think
of that.
Michael was like Stephen Presley there. Maybe he was having a dream at 2 o'clock in the morning that Falkirk were playing Celtic and things have been happening.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm just,
No, but Falkirk are playing on Wednesday. They're playing Motherwell, and that'll be a really massive game for both teams because they're both in and around that sort of. Well, they're both in and around the top 6. So, yeah, and one thing I've noticed with Falkirk is I think in the first 12 Scottish Premiership games, they had 1 clean sheet, and it was against Aberdeen at Pittodrie, and now they've got 2 in the last 2. So that was one thing that you could maybe say that we're struggling with. And as we all know that John McGlynn's team would take risks, they play expansive football. They've got over the average over 50% possession for a newly promoted team. So, yeah, I think that was always going to be one that was interesting. A few people predicted Falkirk to get top 6 before the season even started, but I was going to put them in my top 6 predictions, but then I went back on it and put them like 9th or something. But no, credit to John McGlynn for the start of the season.
See, that's you doing a Michael and sitting on the fence. That's what Michael does.
No, not sitting on the fence. No, not sitting on the fence.
That's Michael's job. He does that every week.
No. I was just being honest about my thoughts. That was genuinely my thoughts that they could come up and be a real force in the Scottish Premiership.
I mean, to be honest with you, at least Ethan knows who Celtic plays on Wednesday night.
Ethan, I'm like you. I actually criticised Falkirk when they came up. I didn't think they'd done enough business in the transfer window, and I had them down at 9th as well. And I think they've proven a lot of people wrong, including me. I think I'll be having some humble pie later, Michael, just to sort of John McGlynn rubbing it in my face. But I do think they're going to have a good season, and I think looking back, they have actually probably got the recruitment spot on, and they're a really, really tough team to play. I wouldn't like to be playing Falkirk right now. I wouldn't like to be playing a lot of teams in that top 6. I mean, Falkirk versus Motherwell is probably my pick for Wednesday night. I think that's going to be a cracking match.
Yeah, it is. I mean, if you go back to the 1st of August, I was actually saying that Tony Docherty is going to win the championship up in the Highlands. So I've predicted some great predictions as well.
Okay, so let's move on to the last match yesterday. Not a lot to write home about, I don't think. Livingston 0, Aberdeen 1, and Reagan, that the Jimmy Tarleen party bus is back on because it's got a few decent results behind them.
Yeah, I mean, it was only a few weeks ago, Michael. I mean, you were wanting Jeremy Tarleen sacked. So I think you need to come in and apologise. I think you and Paul Donaldson were ready for it, Michael, but I think Aberdeen's been very good. I mean, you look at that, a big win last week against Derek, and then to go follow up by beating David Martindale on his team. I think it's been a great few days for Aberdeen.
Thank you to Nicky Devlin for not putting us both with the league, by the way. What a saviour. But no, Ethan, on you go.
No, I was just going to say Aberdeen have been a similar story to Celtic and Hearts, I would say. Not sorry, Celtic and Rangers recently, that they've been getting the wins, but they've not really been the prettiest. But that's what it's about. I think you'd ask any fan, they take results over performances. We've seen that with Motherwell and earlier in the season when they kept playing brilliantly but couldn't take the 3 points. Obviously, was it 5 or 6 draws Motherwell started the Premiership season with? Something like that. But no, Aberdeen get a massive win because despite Livy not being great this season and being bottom of the pile pretty much from the get-go, Aberdeen still need to go there and get a win, and they have done. Big goal by Nicky Devlin, obviously, as a former Livy player, isn't he?
Yeah, I thought you were ready to see Liverpool there.
No, former Livingston player, but no. Yeah, there isn't really much. I think Michael said that there's not really much to talk about in this game, but yeah, a big goal for Nicky Devlin, a big goal for Aberdeen.
I think you've got to question, looking at David Martindale's team, they had 15 shots and they're barely scoring any goals. I think you've got to question what they've got going forward because, you know, they're all losing games close knit. Obviously, they went to Ibrox, lost by a goal. They probably should have had a penalty in that one. They lose by a goal to Aberdeen. They obviously drew 2 games before that against Hampton and Falkirk. I think you've got to be looking at that. They lost before that as well, by the way, by a goal to Motherwell. So you've got to question what they've got in the attacking area because they're clearly creating a lot of chances. They did against Aberdeen. They actually had more shots than Aberdeen by the 90. So you've got to question what he's got up the top end of the party because, you know, we were, let's be honest, we were giving Livingston a lot of praise in the Championship for the way Martindale adapted his style and the way they went about their business in the Championship, but it's not been the sort of thing we're seeing up in the Premiership.
Yeah, and I think it's maybe something that actually a lot of the teams in the league are struggling with scoring goals. A lot of the games are quite close, not a lot of goals. You look at this weekend, there wasn't a lot of goals. And yeah, Aberdeen as well, they haven't been really scoring convincingly either. They've got, 3 in the last 3, 5 in the last 6. But on the other hand, they've picked up 4 clean sheets in the last 6. So obviously when you keep clean sheets, it's going to help you pick up points and results, and that's what they have done. And that's why they're in such a better place than they were a few weeks and months ago when people like Michael, as Reagan said, were wanting Jimmy to leave God.
Okay, let's move on to Robbie's rants for tonight. I don't know, I've got no idea why Robbie wants to rant about this game for, but we'll give him it anyway. Final score, Dundee 3, St Mirren 1. Robbie, take it away.
No, that's just listening. I mean, Robinson summed it up perfectly, Michael. We're in a relegation battle now. I don't think there's any hiding away for that. It's by far probably the worst I've watched us in 3 years, which is saying a lot because we went through some bad spells. I remember under Goodwin, we went 11 games without a win. This is equaling that. I think teams have sort of digged out the way we like to play, the sort of 3-5-2. It doesn't seem to work anymore, and that's a big issue because we've not got players in there that are good enough. I mean, that bench, I think by the way Robinson's speaking and what we've seen for certain players, it's not good enough. The recruitment's not been good enough.
Do you think there'll be a lot of spending in January, Robbie? Because do you think there needs to be?
There need to be outgoings before I think we bring in any incomings. I think it all depends on the circumstances of where we are in January. I mean, there's a lot of fans out there that are doom and gloom right now. There's a lot of different emotions getting shouted about and all that, this and that. But the reality is we play Kilmarnock and Livingston after the cup final. I know before that we've obviously got Aberdeen and then Dundee United at home. You know, out of the 3 home games after this away trip to Pittodrie, we pick up 9 points. You know, the season suddenly flips on its head and we're talking about being in the top 6 conversation again. But we can only speak at how we're doing right now. We've not won a league game in 7. The front 2 are just really, really poor. We got our first goal gifted to us. We're so defensive on that. But we just look at absolute shadow of the team that put 4 past Motherwell in the semi-final a matter of weeks ago. And look, no matter what happens on the 14th, whether we win or lose, especially if we lose, it's going to become so irrelevant. You know, we've spent so many weeks building up the hype of the cup final and this and that, but if we don't win it, then what's the point? We're just going to be coming back down here and talking about relegation battles and how we're going to pick up points here and there. But we need to focus on the league at the end of the day. That's the bread and butter. It's all well and good being inside.
Robbie, I watched a little bit of the match. Do you think you're being too defensive?
It's funny you say that, Reagan, because if you actually look at the 3 goals Dundee score, we're not defensive enough. I don't know where the midfield is for any of the 3 goals. They're hiding away. I think at times we can be too defensive, but we're going to Dens Park and we're hitting 19 shots. At what point do you need to drop the front 2? He's played man John Lundulu for like 5 weeks in a row. It's got to get to a point where you've got to try something new. We've got Evan Mooney, 17. Sitting on the bench. I'm sure he's ready to come in and make an impact. We've got Roland Adowo, who looked really, really good in pre-season, by the way. He's not getting a sniff in the team sheet. We've brought in Malik Dyksdale for Ireland. He's doing nothing. There's so many players in there that I'm sure are ready to make an impact, and whether they're good enough or not is a different story, but you've got to at least try something new, and we're away to Pittodrie, and I honestly don't have any confidence we're going to go there and get a result.
Yeah, Robbie, I texted you at 3:10 on Saturday when I seen that goal from Mandaron. It's terrible play by Dundee, but it's a good finish for Mandaron as well.
It's a composed finish. I don't quite know what McCracken was doing in the Dundee goal, to be honest with you, but the same could be argued for Shamal George for Drew Wright's goal. I'm not quite sure what he's trying to do. It was just so poor. We get tactically outclassed by Stephen Presley. I don't think there's any other way to put that, and he's picked up points now against Rangers, Celtic and St. You've got to give him credit at some point. I thought his team handled business really, really well. They scored 3 outside the box shots. The team showed no fear. They played exactly the way you want them to.
Yeah, and just for St Mirren, I think it's been really strange to see how much they've struggled recently, certainly in the league, obviously, since the last time they played Dundee, 1 point from a possible 21, as I'm sure Robbie already knows about. I don't need to remind him. But was there a similar, or I think it's probably worse this season, but last season early in the campaign, was there not a little bit of pressure on St Mirren? They started really slowly. There was pressure on Stephen Robinson before he signed the contract and stuff like that. So I think there's still a lot of time for St Mirren to turn it around, would you not say, Robbie?
Yeah, I'm definitely not hitting the panic bells yet. There's still a lot of football to be played, and I'll sort of reassess after the next 3 home games. Dundee United, Kilmarnock and Livingston, that's 3 teams that in my opinion we should be looking to beat. So, I'm not going to hit the panic bells yet. You're right, there has been different spells throughout Robinson's tenure where we have struggled, and look, I think we just need O'Hara back. I think we're missing such a big leader of the squad. We just found out Declan John, probably our best player up until we had to come out, is going to be out till the end of December, meaning he's going to miss the cup final, which is kind of gutting. I'm not trying to use that as an excuse, but I think I'm convinced when we get O'Hara back, we're going to be fine. Saying that, if we come back on the show at the end of December and we've not won a home game, then that's when I'll probably start getting a bit worried.
Is O'Hara going to be back for the final, Robbie? Because he could be so important.
I don't know. Robinson said he had a second injection in his foot, and we're yet to really find out if he's recovering from it. Apparently, up until that point, he hadn't recovered for the first injection well, so we're unsure of how Mark's going to be feeling, but I'm hoping we get him back for the final because I think it would be such a...
See the thing with these injections, I totally understand it, right? But I remember Gerrard done it a lot when Rangers players were injured, but a lot of the time when you do these injections, it can take a while to recover from it.
It can, and I think we were hoping it was only going to take 1 injection and he'd be back by now. But it seems to be turning into a couple of months injury, which is no great. And I just wish we were a bit more braver with our system. I think he needs to change it for Wednesday. We're obviously again away to Pittodrie. Aberdeen will be fancying their chances in the game because unless something changes, and Robinson's a very stubborn manager, he doesn't like to change his system, he likes to play his way. But unless he changes, we're going to keep finding this goal. And look, we've scored 1 goal out of our last 3. We've not looked like scoring many more, to be honest with you. So, something does need to change.
Robbie, I don't know if you watched the show about 3 weeks ago, but me and Alex were arguing because me and Ethan was on the show, and Alex was saying that this is a big reason why Stephen Robinson won't be in sort of gave me a chance of getting the Rangers job or the Aberdeen job is because of the system that he plays, and I don't think it suits some big clubs. Me and Alex were sort of arguing about. I don't know if you remember the show, Ethan, but Alex was he was totally adamant.
Yeah, well, I think you could the talk about it, and that is a debate I've seen, but I don't think Danny Rose played very flattering football since he's came in, but they're getting results. Before, obviously, yesterday they were getting results, and that's the main thing. Obviously, when you're struggling and you don't have the financial power of Rangers or Celtic, then you need to use what you've got and you need to use that to your advantage. And that's what Stephen Robinson does, and that's what a great manager does. So that's why he's been one of the best managers in Scotland for years now, and why he always gets the best out of his team. Like I said to Robbie, I don't think it was maybe to this extent, but St Mirren didn't start the season last campaign very well, and look where they finished. So I think there's still time to turn it around, and obviously when you're missing a key player like Mark O'Hara, it's going to be difficult. But for Dundee, I just want to give Stephen Presley credit for his dreams where he changed his team thoughts. But I think Stephen Presley is someone that, and I think the loads of the Dundee fans stand by this, that no matter where they are in the league this season, it's going to be a struggle for them, and it's not all going to be down to Stephen Presley, because I think the recruitment, it was a struggle to get the players they needed in. I don't think he's got the best squad. I think he is really doing well with what he's got at his disposal. You think Simon Murray, how good he was last season, for them to be that low on the table, and you think about Simon Murray this season, complete polar opposites. So yeah, he's doing very well with what he's got, and for Dundee to be ninth in the table is, well, I would say remarkable with the squad that he's got. So well done to him and all the Dundee players, and they'll be hoping they can continue to pick up points here and there, because that's what they've done. They've picked up surprise results like this, and maybe not the St Mirren one as much because of how St Mirren's form was, but the draw against Rangers and certainly the win against Celtic, whereas teams like Kilmarnock, St Mirren obviously as well are really, really struggling to get anything at the moment. I know Kilmarnock, a point is what got onto, and then Livingston, I think everyone just recognises them as the weakest team in the league, certainly financially, as David Martindale would go on about, but also with what they bring in, they're going to struggle throughout the campaign. So Dundee in a really good place at the moment, and hats off to Stephen Presley.
Reagan, just to come in on that Robinson point now you made there, I mean, Robinson can adapt. I think that point's nonsense, to be honest. He played a 4-2-3-1 at Motherwell. He built a team around a 4-2-3-1, and he took that in a season where he finished third and got into 2 cup finals. So, in my opinion, Robinson's more than capable enough to manage Rangers and Aberdeen, albeit I hope he doesn't. I hope he stays at the club.
The point I mentioned to Alex, Robbie, was that Stephen Robinson got a Motherwell team into third in the league, you know?
By adapting, by the way. As you said, he did adapt. He played a 4-2-3-1, which, you know, is a good system. I'm sure Rangers fans would like it if they went back to playing a 4-2-3-1. So, you know, he has got that adaptability in him. And just to touch on what Ethan was saying there, full credit needs to go to Presley. I mean, that's a group of really young players. You know, the guy, what's his name, is it Wesley in the midfield? He's only 21. He get an assist. He looks like a really good player. They utilise Jan Danda well. They've got
Danda, Robbie, because I spoke to Stuart Murphy a few weeks ago when me and you was on, and he was saying that Danda wasn't really doing much. But I mean, I thought from what I watched on Saturday afternoon, I thought Danda played pretty well.
I thought Jan Danda was a pretty good driving force, to be honest, in that team. I thought Dundee won the midfield battle really, really easily. But you know, you've got guys like him. I think that he mixes both well. You know, you've got Tony Yogani, the left mid. He's only 20. He looked like a really, really promising player. So I think what Presley's done is he's taken the sort of experienced heads he's got in the team, like, you know, your Simon Murray up front. But he's built some youth players around him. He's bringing some players that, you know, want a chance to go and prove themselves. And I thought they handled their business really, really well on Saturday. There's no complaints for me. We just simply need to be better.
Yeah, I mean, you spoke about St Mirren fans being disgruntled and stuff like that, but I think Stephen Robinson's proved time after time that he can really do a job.
Again, there's space to turn this around. There was a lot of overreaction. There was a lot of nasty comments that I don't think needed to be said after the game on Saturday. I think Robinson handled it very, very well. He told, in his words, he told a few home truths to the players, which they've been needing to hear. Reagan, I think these players, and I'd even bring guys like Kelly and Phillips, who have played so much into this. I think too many of these players have an eye on that final. I don't think, and Robinson's trying to downplay it as much as possible, but these players need to be focused on the league. At the end of the day, we're no guaranteed to walk away with a trophy on December 14th. So we need to be focused on trying to make sure the league positions we're staying up, battling for the top six, because there's no guarantee we're going to win this cup.
Aye, and I know that players can. I mean, it's been a saying for many years, probably, that players can play themselves into playing for the final, but they can also play themselves out of playing the final as well. Because if players play really bad, then it's not going to make the manager play them as well.
100%. I'm slightly worried that we've got this far, 7 games without winning the league, and he's not yet really changed the starting 11. That worries me. But he did say himself that, these players are not guaranteed to play in the final or even come off the bench. So, these players have got to get a bit of drive into them. We've got 2 massive games before the final. We're away to Pittodrie. Again, I'm still not confident in a home to Dundee United. If Jim Goodwin does his air before the final, I mean, that'll leave the players' heads well dropped getting into that game.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, Robbie, I know you're not a big fan of Jim. I know you're not a big fan of him, but
No, me and him are best pals. Me and him are best pals.
yeah, I mean, he does do a good job at Cobbs, but I mean, the time he had at St Mirren and then the time he had at Aberdeen wasn't the best.
No, it wasn't great. Had some decent moments with us, obviously 2 semi-finals. But aye, he's well suited to Dundee United. He's built a team there that look alright. I mean, they did get absolutely dismantled after Falkirk, a 3-0 at home, which was a poor result, but you know what you're going to get. So, Reagan, I think it's a massive few weeks for someone. I really do for us. I think there's going to be, I think a lot's going to be telling on Wednesday night and then Saturday, because building up into that final, and I'm sure we'll cover it a lot on the show on the week leading up to it, we're going to need to be at our best and we're going to need to be playing with confidence. And if we lose our next 2 matches, I'm not going to be very confident going into the final at all.
I mean, Robbie, the thing for me as well is the players need, even if they don't win the match on Wednesday night, they still need to go about and score goals and play well to try and build that sort of self-belief in terms of going to the final. Because if you go in and you get beaten 3-0 by Aberdeen and you draw the match against Dundee United, then the players are not going to be feeling very good. And in contrast, Celtic have got a real momentum the last few weeks.
Aye, and that is the problem. We're hitting 19 shots away from home. We're dominating possession, which St Mirren doesn't usually do. We don't usually have 63% possession. We hit 11 more shots than Dundee, but Dundee looked more likely to score than us. It could have been more than 3-1 at full time. So it really does just show you, how poor we're actually playing right now. And until we switch up the team, which Robinson needs to on Wednesday, there's got to be changes in there. Until we do that, I don't think results are going to come. And look, it's been so. I know you've mentioned the sort of brief spell at the start of last season, but things have always sort of been going up. It's always been, if you look at a graph, it's always been sort of going upwards. I think this is the first time I'm looking at a Robinson St Mirren team, and it's gone down the way a bit. And we do need to turn it around, because heading into January, as I said, with that run of home games we've got, if we're not picking up 3 points in each of the, if we're not beating these teams, we are going to be in a relegation battle for the rest of the season.
See in terms of, is it Murray, Robbie? I did see him playing well against Rangers last season. Do you think he does? Do you think he does sort of think he's got a decent chance to be in this squad at the moment, starting 11?
I'd hope so. What I would say is though, like, you know, you're looking at the players that haven't even made have not even really come on. You look at Dundee, for example, Mooney Taylor, Fraser Taylor, who by the way I thought played magnificent against Celtic when he came on, and Liam Donnelly. You know, you've got the players there. If they're not coming on that pitch, what does that say about Robinson's trust in them? Does he believe that a 17-year-old Evan Mooney is good enough to be sitting on St Mirren's bench right now? I don't think he does. I think with the budget we've got and with the recruitment we've made, it seems like we've built heavily for the starting 11 and then just use whatever we can on the bench, which is really hurting the squad right now in this tough run of fixtures.
And I think it's really worrying as well, because if one of your starting 11 players is, if he's not playing well or he gets injured for a while, then it can be a bit scary for you as well, because then that quality of the bench is not very good.
Aye. Well, we're seeing it now with Mark O'Hara being it. Conor McMenamin's filled into that position. A guy that's predominantly a winger. He looked alright against Celtic, actually. I thought, Wigan, I know you watched the match. I thought he looked alright against Celtic. Looked polar opposite against Dundee. He didn't look involved in the game at all. Neither did Killian Phillips, by the way. And Phillips is one I always give credit for, because I always think he runs his heart out. But I don't think he looked up to it. I don't think Gogic looked up to much, to be honest with you. There was a lot of players that just really didn't play the game well, and we rightly get punished for it.
Yeah, I mean, Robbie, I think we should move on next and talk about the Scottish draw last night. Well, I suppose the standout tie, Robbie, is Auchinleck Talbot against Celtic.
Aye, that is definitely an interesting tie. Auchinleck obviously getting a fine reward for beating Dumbarton, as you've been mentioned earlier. I already see the hospitality package just sold it for that game. It's going to be an interesting tie, to say the least. I'm excited to sort of speak about it more towards when the ties actually happen. I just think Auckland will be happy they've got a glamour tie, if you will, in Celtic. And I do think that's what it's all about. I think, obviously, you know, that's the sort of games that you see Livingston wanting to make money off. You know, Livingston play Celtic at Rangers at home a couple of times a season, and they make a lot of good budget after that, for ticket sales, etc. So for a club like Auckland, if be playing against them, you know, it's a pretty big turnover in finances for them.
I mean, Robin, for me, the standout tie is going to be Partick Thistle against Montrose. I'm only joking, by the way, because I'll be there, obviously. But I don't know about you guys, but what else is sort of stands out for you?
I'm just going to go and get the full draw right now. I'm looking at my team. I don't think after I saw Livingston, that's a terrible fixture. Hearts v Falkirk, time capsule is a pretty interesting game, I'd say. Obviously, well, you'll see how both teams are playing at this point, but right now they're two really on-form teams. You know, they'll probably want to go at each other, so that could be an interesting game. I think Cameron Juniors have got an interesting tie. Elgin City at home. You know, it's not exactly a glamour tie, I'd say, but if you want to progress through to the next round and potentially get yourself a glamour tie, then you've got a good home draw there that you can be looking to go and win. Obviously, it is weird not to see St Johnstone in the sort of next round. Obviously, they lost at home. Pretty poor result for them. So there's a couple of decent results in there. And of course, if they've got themselves a glamour tie to Ibrox. So there's a few ties in there that we're speaking about.
Aye, the ones that maybe haven't been mentioned that I picked out was Dundee United v Ayr United. Personally, a little bit. Yeah, that was the one I was going to say. Neil Lennon, of course, hosting his old side he managed in Hibs. So yeah, that could be. Yeah, that's always a route for potential banana skins when it's Championship v Premiership. So yeah, we've got a few of them throughout the draw. So yeah,
I think as well, guys, that it's so good for these for these lowly clubs.
Yeah, as these are sort of not life changes, maybe the wrong word. Club changing, you could say. Some of these ties, like Auchinleck hosting Celtic, wherever it may be. hopefully it is at Auchinleck Stadium, because I think that's what it's all about in the Scottish Cup. But I've heard rumours that it might not be.
Well, I think now that they've sold the hospitality packages, I think they probably need to play there. I don't think you can sell hospitality packages and then move the game.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that.
I think
I
it's
think it
still-
should be there.
I mean, I was looking at the venue capacity. I think it's still like 3,000-4,000 talking like, so still going to be a lot of fans there as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the smaller capacity stadiums and the professional, not the professional, sorry, the top 4 leagues. So there's no reason why they can't host it with, like you said, 3,000 or 4,000. So yeah, that should be a really interesting one. Obviously, it'd be the greatest Scottish Cup upset of all time if Celtic went to go there and win. But that's what football's all about, isn't it?
Since we were doing predictions, well, no predictions, but we're kind of speaking of predictions about Falkirk earlier, right? I done before the season started who I thought would win both cups. And for the League Cup, I did get it wrong. I did put Rangers to beat us in the final, so I did get one team right. I got us into the final. For the Scottish Cup, I put Dundee United to beat Hearts. So that is kind of an interesting one, and I'm really excited to see how the cup goes, because you know the teams are sort of evenly spread. You know, if the big teams start avoiding each other in the later rounds, then you know we could be looking at a pretty tasty, like sort of last 10 teams left in the tournament.
For me, Robbie,
Exactly.
I did say that I think the Jambos would win the League Cup, but that's no proven because obviously St Mirren beat them in penalties. But I think for the Scottish, I'm going to go for Partick Thistle. No,
Aye.
I'm joking. I think maybe Dundee, maybe when Stephen Presley dreamed about it tonight. No, but I think in general, Robbie, I'm going to go for David Gray to make more magical memories, and I'm going to go for the Highbees to win.
See, I was actually just about to ask you, would you think any upsets will potentially come? And I was going to say maybe Neil Lennon will do Van Air with Dunfermline.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Well, to be
think of
honest with
any
you
other
guys,
ones.
I watched Dunfermline on Tuesday night against Partick Thistle, and I thought they were very, very good. A player that I really enjoy watching in the Championship, Todd, he played really well.
Aye. He's in
Also,
the Scotland. Sorry, I was just going to say he's in the Scotland the B team as well, and he's doing quite well in there.
I mean, I was so impressed with them. They probably should have been 2-0 up, and the opening of the match on Tuesday, but Partick Thistle stayed in the game, and then obviously managed to get that goal through Aidan Fitzpatrick. But I think Neil Lennon's got a squad going there. He's got Rory McLeod, who's a good player as well. I don't know if you guys have ever watched him, but I was very impressed with him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. That'd be some story if it was Neil Lennon to take down Hibs. But yeah, we'll soon see, I guess.
And then draw Celtic in the next
And
round.
draw Celtic. Take them down as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Celtic and Dunfermline takes you back to, I think it was 20 odd years ago when obviously Celtic won the trophy back then. But I'm going to stick with the Highbees to win the trophy.
Aye, I'll stick with Dundee United to beat Hearts in the final. I'll go with it.
At the start of the season, I think I said Hearts for the League Cup, which was obviously wrong, and then I think I said Celtic for the Scottish Cup. So I'll stick with that, which may mean Celtic winning a treble somehow. But
Robbie, the only thing if Dundee United win the Scottish trophy, I've got to get you a press pass to interview Jim after the final for the Scottish football zone. You'll be raging. You'll be fuming.
No. Listen, me and Jim are best pals. But no, Jason, if I can just say one more thing, and I know we're going to wrap up soon. I really like the way they done the draw after sports scene highlights instead of cutting it half to one singular stream or whatever. I really liked the way it was presented last night.
Yeah, I've seen a few people saying that.
Who
I
was
didn't
on the
actually
draw,
get to
Robbie?
watch the draw, but
Who done the draw?
Aidan McGeady done the draw last night.
Oh,
It was great after all the highlights. They showed all the highlight package and then they cut it out of the other part of the studio where McGeady was there. I just thought it was really well done, but better than I'm sort of used to seeing with draws. So I hope they keep doing that.
I was just going to say, Robbie, I think the best draw I've seen was that
Rod Stewart,
that draw for Rod Stewart.
aye, that'll never be topped. That was amazing.
Yep. So drop us a comment and tell us who you think is going to win the trophy at the very end of the season at the National Stadium. But I've got to say, Robbie, the big news from today is it's not called the National Stadium anymore. It's called the Barclays Stadium at Hampden Park.
nah,
Aye.
it's still Hampden Park.
Aye, it's still Hampden Park.
Oh, the
I'm
Barclays Stadium.
not calling it, but Barclays are English. I'm not calling it a national stadium based off a bank that was made in England. It's Hampden Park and it forever will be.
It's a banker, Robbie. It's a banker.
Nah, it will forever be Hampden Park. It doesn't matter what they name it. It's like calling it's like St Mirren Park, but in it you always call it Love Street. You always call Celtic Park Celtic Park. It's just one of the things that
I
happens.
just love if Celtic would call themselves the Pizza Hut Stadium, but we call it the Pizza Hut Stadium in Celtic Park. Something like that, be crazy. But I mean, I think it just shows you as well, guys, that I think Celtic and Rangers should be looking for sponsorship.
Maybe, but it's a rarity. It's the biggest clubs in each country, for the most part, have got sponsors to their stadium names. Most of them don't. Old Trafford. Well, actually, never mind. A lot of them do. The Emirates, the Etihad.
Aye.
So yeah, maybe we'll see it soon. But I don't think Celtic and Rangers fans would be really happy with it. That is probably the same we've seen with Scotland, and most people will still just call it Hampden Park.
I hope we use the money wisely, because by what I'm hearing, and if it's right, we've got the SFA are going to be making some money off this deal. It's a partner worth a couple million quid. So I'm hoping whatever income we get after this deal, we put a good use.
Yeah.
I suppose the final point, Robbie, we should make is that Motherwell got a good draw against the Jambles, because I think Motherwell have been playing some beautiful football, guys.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, who's? Aye, a really good draw actually. Aye.
Oh right, okay, yeah. I was wondering.
I thought you meant cup draw, and I was like, what?
Yeah. No, good draw for Motherwell, and they've been playing well recently. And the problem with the performances not really turning out the wins is changed. I know we're talking about a draw on this occasion, but I think the Motherwell fans are a lot more happy than they were when it was agonising for them to watch their team continually fail to get the 3 points. And for the Hearts, sorry, yeah, they need to flip the switch and go again and get a second win. Yeah, exactly.
Robbie, is there anything you want to add about that?
No, I think Derek's been very fair in his assessment that, Hearts can look as a positive of where they are right now. They weren't even in the top 6 come the end of last season, so the fact they're even up this high shows a lot of improvement. I think for what I'm reading, Hearts fans are maybe not wanting McKenty to play it right back anymore. I think that there's maybe a couple of changes needed in that team, but in my opinion, that's a good point about Motherwell. Motherwell are a very good team. I'm glad we played them in the semi when we did, because I think if we were going to play the semi say this weekend, I'd be a bit more nervous about it. I think Jens has got his team set up really well, and they've got a few wins under their belt. And Motherwell are going to be a team, I think, that are going to be competing right up the top end of the table. So, a pretty even draw, I'd say.
Aye, Robbie, and just finally, talk to us a bit about a brand new TikTok page.
Aye, we've got a brand new TikTok, but I'm not too sure they are actually. Regan, is it at Scottish Football Zone? Is that just Aye, at Scottish Football Zone. We will be posting a lot of TikToks on there. Regan's got a lot of good content up, a lot of good interviews so far. From multiple different players and managers. There was a good one. Was it Jason Holt you uploaded today? That was an interesting chat about Simo Valakari. So there's a lot of really good stuff up on the TikTok, and I'm sure we'll be posting a lot more as well. Try and get some fan interviews, try and get some interviews with people on the show as well about how they fell into love watching Scottish football and stuff. So there's a lot of good content coming up. Obviously, I believe we'll all be live on Wednesday for the midweek games. Obviously, pretty much a full fixture card on Wednesday night, so I'm sure we'll be live for that as well. And obviously on Friday we've got the big World Cup draw for Scotland, so we will definitely be live for that as well.
Robbie, you're not heading up to Aberdeen? Not in the snow, no?
No, you're alright. I could spend my Wednesday nights doing more important things than heading up to Aberdeen to watch us ship 4 goals inevitably. But no, I will be watching the game. It is a pretty interesting fixture card on Wednesday, but I believe we will be live on the show after the games.
Yep, we will all be live on Wednesday. And thank you to you guys for joining me.
Thank you for having me, as always.
Aye, thank
No
you.
problem, guys.
You're watching the Scottish Football Zone with all the build-up and reaction.